Have you ever noticed how animals seem drawn to you in ways that don't happen with other people? How cats that normally hide from strangers will approach you? How dogs seem to sense something different about your energy? How even wild animals appear unusually calm in your presence? If you're an INFJ, INFP, INTJ, or INTP, this isn't your imagination, and Carl Jung actually explained why this happens. Before we dive into this fascinating phenomenon, smash that subscribe button and hit the like button. You're about to discover why your rare personality type creates what Jung called a silent magnetism that animals can sense, but most humans completely miss. Here's something that will blow your mind. Jung didn't just study human psychology. He was deeply fascinated by what he called the collective unconscious, the deeper layers of awareness that connect all living beings. And he observed that certain personality types, particularly the intuitive introverts, seem to have a natural ability to tap into these deeper currents of awareness. Jung wrote extensively about what he called participation mystique, a psychological state where the boundaries between self and environment become permeable. He noticed that people with dominant introverted intuition, that's INFJs and INTJs, and those with strong introverted feeling, INFPs and some INTPs, seem to naturally access this state more easily than other types. But here's where it gets really interesting. Animals live in this state of heightened awareness constantly. They're always tuned into subtle energies, micro-expressions, and emotional frequencies that most humans have learned to ignore. When they encounter someone who naturally operates on these same wavelengths, they recognize a kindred spirit. Let me explain what's actually happening when animals are drawn to you. Jung identified several psychological mechanisms that create this magnetic effect, and modern research has validated many of his observations. First, there's what Jung called inferior function sensitivity. As a rare type, your least developed cognitive function creates what he described as a window into the unconscious. This makes you naturally more receptive to subtle environmental cues that others miss entirely. Animals, who rely on these same subtle cues for survival, can sense this heightened receptivity. When you're around animals, you're not trying to dominate or control the interaction the way many people do. Instead, you're naturally receptive, allowing the animal to approach on its own terms. This non-threatening presence is exactly what animals are looking for in their interactions with humans. Second, Jung observed that intuitive types have what he called permeable ego boundaries. Your sense of self is less rigid than most people's, which allows you to empathically tune into the emotional states of others, including animals. You're not just projecting human emotions onto animals, you're actually picking up on their genuine emotional frequencies. This is why you might find yourself knowing exactly how an animal is feeling, even when other people can't read the same signals. You're accessing what Jung called the animal layer of the psyche, the instinctual non-verbal awareness that we share with all living creatures. Third, there's your natural tendency toward what Jung called active imagination. You don't just see animals as objects or even as simple creatures with basic needs. Your intuitive functions automatically recognize the depth and complexity of their inner lives. Animals can sense this recognition, and they respond to being truly seen rather than just observed. Jung also wrote about something he called synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that seem to occur more frequently around certain people. If you're a rare type, you've probably noticed that animals often appear in your life at exactly the right moments, almost as if they're responding to some invisible signal. This isn't mystical thinking, it's psychological observation. Your heightened sensitivity to environmental patterns makes you more likely to notice when animals are present, and your non-threatening energy makes them more likely to approach you. The result is what appears to be a magical connection, but it's actually the natural result of your psychological makeup. Now, let me share some specific examples of how this magnetism manifests for different rare types. If you're an INFJ, you probably find that animals seem to seek you out for comfort when they're stressed or injured. Your dominant knee creates a calm, stable presence that animals find soothing. You naturally emanate what Jung called healing energy, not in a supernatural sense, but in the very real sense of emotional regulation and empathic understanding. INFJs often report that stray animals find them, that wild animals approach them without fear, and that even typically aggressive animals become calm in their presence. This happens because your Nephi combination creates what Jung described as unconditional positive regard. You see the animal's essential nature rather than just its behavior. If you're an INFP, Your connection with animals often centers around what Jung called authentic feeling. Animals are incredibly sensitive to emotional authenticity, and your phi function naturally generates genuine, unfiltered emotional responses. When you feel joy, sadness, or wonder around an animal, they sense that these emotions are real and unguarded. INFPs frequently find that animals seem to understand their moods and respond accordingly. A cat might purr when you're sad, or a dog might become playful when you're feeling joyful. This isn't coincidence, it's your authentic emotional expression creating a feedback loop with the animal's natural empathy. If you're an INTJ, your connection with animals often manifests through what Jung called intuitive understanding. Your knee function naturally recognizes patterns and systems, including the complex behavioral patterns that govern animal psychology. You understand animals not through emotion, but through deep pattern recognition. INTJs often find that they can predict animal behavior with uncanny accuracy, that animals seem to trust their judgment, even in unfamiliar situations, and that they can establish rapport with animals that others find difficult or unpredictable. This happens because your knee sees the underlying logic of animal behavior rather than just its surface manifestations. If you're an INTP, your connection with animals often centers around what Jung called curious observation. Your T function creates a non-judgmental, purely investigative approach to understanding animal behavior. Animals sense that you're genuinely interested in understanding them rather than controlling them. INTPs frequently report that animals seem comfortable being themselves around them, that they observe animal behaviors that others never see, and that animals often approach them out of what seems like pure curiosity. This happens because your T creates a safe space for authentic expression, both yours and theirs. But here's what Jung found most fascinating about this animal magnetism. It's not just about the animals being drawn to you, it's also about what this connection reveals about your own psychological development. Jung believed that our relationship with animals reflects our relationship with our own instinctual nature. When animals are drawn to you, it's often because you've maintained access to what Jung called the natural self, the part of your psyche that hasn't been completely socialized out of its instinctual wisdom. Most people lose this connection as they become more civilized, but rare types often retain it because of their natural resistance to conventional social conditioning. This is why your connection with animals often feels more authentic than many of your human relationships. Animals can't be fooled by social masks or pretense. They respond only to your genuine energy, which means that when they're drawn to you, you know you're being accepted for who you truly are. Jung also observed that people with strong animal magnetism often serve as what he called bridges between the civilized and natural worlds. Your ability to connect with animals isn't just a personal gift. It's a form of psychological service that helps maintain the connection between human consciousness and the broader web of life. This is particularly important in our modern world, where many people have become completely disconnected from their instinctual nature. Your natural ability to communicate with animals serves as a reminder that we're all part of a larger ecosystem of consciousness. But Jung also warned about the shadow side of this gift. Sometimes people with strong animal magnetism find it easier to connect with animals than with humans. While this preference is understandable, animals are often more straightforward and authentic than people. Jung emphasized the importance of developing both capacities. Your ability to connect with animals can actually teach you valuable lessons about human relationships. Animals respond to energy, authenticity, and emotional regulation, qualities that are just as important in human interactions. The patience, presence, and non-judgmental awareness that you naturally bring to animal relationships can be powerful tools for deepening your human connections as well. So how can you consciously develop and honor this natural gift? First, pay attention to the animals that are drawn to you and what they might be reflecting about your own psychological state. Jung believed that animals often appear in our lives as messengers, reflecting aspects of our psyche that need attention. Second, use your animal connections as a form of psychological grounding. When you're feeling overwhelmed by human complexity and social demands, spending time with animals can help you reconnect with your authentic self. Animals don't care about your achievements, your social status, or your problems. They respond only to your present moment energy. Third, let your animal connections teach you about presence and mindfulness. Animals live entirely in the present moment, and their natural state is one of alert, relaxed awareness. When you're with animals, practice matching their energy. becoming fully present and dropping your mental preoccupations. Fourth, honor the responsibility that comes with this gift. Animals that are drawn to you are often seeking something they can't find elsewhere: comfort, understanding, or simply the experience of being truly seen. When you provide this, you're participating in what Jung called the healing of the world. And finally, remember that your animal magnetism is a reflection of your psychological authenticity. The same qualities that draw animals to you, your emotional genuineness, your non-threatening presence, your intuitive understanding, are gifts that the human world desperately needs as well. Jung believed that people with natural animal magnetism were often called to serve as healers, teachers, or bridges between different worlds. Your ability to connect with animals isn't just a pleasant quirk. It's a sign that you've maintained access to deeper layers of awareness that our civilization often loses. In a world that's becoming increasingly disconnected from nature, your natural ability to communicate with animals represents something precious and necessary. You're not just someone who's good with animals. You're someone who's maintained the psychological flexibility to connect across species boundaries. This gift comes with both privileges and responsibilities. The privilege is the deep joy and authenticity that comes from these connections. The responsibility is to use this gift in service of greater understanding and healing, both for the animals you encounter and for the humans who have forgotten how to access their own instinctual wisdom. If this exploration of Jung's insights about animal magnetism has helped you understand your own experiences, share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Comment below and tell me about your own experiences with animals. What species are most drawn to you and what you think they're responding to in your energy. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, because we're building a community of rare minds who understand that our sensitivity isn't a weakness, but a superpower that connects us to the deeper currents of life itself. Remember, in a world that often feels too harsh for your sensitive nature, animals recognize you as a safe harbor. That recognition isn't just about them. It's about the authentic, unguarded part of yourself that you've managed to preserve despite all the pressures to conform. And that, my friend, is one of your greatest gifts to the world.